Hello, Assalamualaikum. This is part 3 of system implementation strategies. In the first part, we covers on UML diagram related to component diagram and deployment diagram. These diagrams are being used during implementation. In the second part, it covers on several strategies on conversion, whereby the system is now ready and you're trying to transfer it to the user's place. And the last one is more on the discussion on some of other implementation activities and also common mistakes that happen during implementation phase. Okay, in these slides, we are covering the remaining activities in the implementation phase, which is documentation, training, support, and also maintenance. Okay, I think by now you will realize that whenever you are involved in software development, there are lots of documentation involved. Why is this important? It's because while you are doing development, it is done at the software house or among the programmers. And later on, when the system is ready, you are going to transfer it to the user. So all the information is actually needed when you pass it to your customer or your user. So there are many forms or many types of documentation. In these slides, I'm only going to cover it in a very surface level. We don't go into details. Among the common one that you already know right now is actually the external documentation. So you've been drawing use case diagram, designing classes, doing activity diagrams and sequence diagrams. That is actually can be considered as external documentation. Why is it external? Because you are going to share it with your client later on. And part of that, you're also going to write documentation for your user. It's more like a user manual, explaining how to use and how it works. And also, there are very detailed documentation related to the systems. Basically, it covers on system design specification, the inner working, very detailed functionality information, and also on top of that, you also have a documentation which is used internally. It's inside the software development team. So it relates to comments in the source code, right? It's very detailed. So basically, it's only going to use among the developer. Okay. This documentation related to internal can either be written manually or done by software compilers. Okay. This is an example of user documentation. So whenever you use any Microsoft Office product, when you click on the help, there is a list of well-organized content that will help the user to find their way to the functions that they might be interested in. Okay. During this phase also, during implementation, other than doing documentation, another activity that is also important is to provide training and support. Remember that your system is now ready and you are going to pass it to your actual user. So, because this is normally a new system, so you need to train your user. Okay? It can either be an ongoing training or problem solving system, meaning that you receive calls from your user asking for help. Okay, so it is based on the problems that they are currently having, right? So because you are providing training, so you need to design the content so that it can be used by your user. Okay, training can come in many forms. Among those are resident experts, which is training given by an expert from the user side. Okay, on top of that, you can also give training in the form of computer aided instruction. So you have to prepare this before giving it to your user, whereby you prepare, it's like a YouTube video that you normally watch where they give step by step on how to perform certain action using the tools. And training can also come in a form of formal courses where you actually give 1 week training with very organized module with examples where you walk them through the steps and so on. And training can also be informed in the software help components where it is like um, nowadays, I think if you still remember in the Microsoft Office, previously in the Microsoft Word, whenever you are going to the help section, right? So when you search for some help in the some content, the help section, it will give you some recommendation. Okay, what might be other things that you might be interested in when you face certain problem. And also you can perform tutorial, okay, where you go there to the organization of your users organization and then you give training to them. Or it can be the form of interactive training manual, so where you combine tutorials and also computer aided instruction, or also in the form of external sources, especially when your system is also using another system. For example, you need to train the database part, so you can also call help from the training provided by the vendors. Okay, so this is an example of a software component that provide help. Okay, I think you still remember this before, but I think nowadays Microsoft Office does not have this function anymore. All right, so this is the next one, whereby when you are doing you are in the implementation phase, you need to also provide supports to your user because they are new in using this system, right? So among ways that you can help them is to either provide a help desk, okay, where they can give you a call whenever they are facing certain problem or need more information. And another one is to provide an information center, okay, which is an organizational unit whose mission is to support, okay. So it's like a customer support that will always be there to answer questions or any inquiries. Okay, we have just now documentation, training, support. The next one is actually system maintenance. Okay, because you can imagine that by this time around, your user are getting used to the system that you just built for them. Okay, as they go along using the system, they are becoming more familiar, or maybe they found more errors from your system, or maybe they have new ideas on how they would like the system to be. All right, so during maintenance itself, there are 4 types of maintenance that could happen. The first one is called corrective. This is what I mentioned to you just now, because they've been using the system. They've been trying out all the functions that you have designed for them. So maybe along the way there is errors here and there, right? Maybe in terms of design or maybe in terms of the codes. Okay, so they can highlight to you. This is among the most effort done during maintenance, right? So this is the point of time that errors will be discovered by the user. Okay, secondly is called adaptive. So this is the kind of fix or enhancements that you have to perform related to environmental changes. Okay, what happens is that when you do the development, you are running it in the computer setting in your company, right? So now you pass it to your user. Maybe they have different configuration, they use different operating system, different machine, different screen size. Okay, so maybe due to the environment changes, some of the setting does not fit well to your system. So you need to change the code a bit so that it works on the user's side. Okay, the third one is called preventive. preventive is because right now at this point of time your user it's more comfortable using your system, right? Because they know where to click, what are the new function that you have in the new system. So because they've been using it, they have more idea on what they would like to have next. Okay, so that is the new opportunities. So they will give you recommendation. So what should be next in terms of the functions. Okay, and the last one is called preventive. So at this point of time, maybe the user or the developer themselves, because they know what are the common errors that would happen. So how to avoid things from the same errors from reoccurring. So they have more idea on how to fix the problem so that the system are safer for future uh, use. Okay, because there are 4 types of maintenance requests that you'll be seeing during the maintenance phase. So how are you going to deal with it? Okay, so let's say when there are requests for maintenance, either in the form of corrective, preventive, adaptive, okay, any one of the 4. So once you receive it, so the project management need to decide whether to accept it or not. Okay, so once it is being accepted, the request for maintenance is accepted by the development team. They will go to the system analysis phase again. Okay, where they will take a look, okay, what caused the problem, where does it happen, okay. Right, so during this phase, what will happen, it will try to transform the request for change into the actual changes in the system. Okay, so after they know where to fix it, they will go to the system design. Okay, they will have to fix, you have to touch on the design part. Okay, if you want to do this kind of addition to the system, what will be affected, which class will be affected, which method will be added or deleted, and then here they'll do the designing the changes. Then once this is cleared, it will go to the coding part where they do some changes in the code, okay, changes in the test, right, changes in the documentation, changes in the training, and so on. So it will be still in the cycle. So whenever a new request happen, it will follow the same cycle again. All right. Because the change of requests from the 4 types of requests can happen throughout uh, the year or several years to come. So how will the project manager handle this? Okay, so basically this is a flow that the project manager can use in order to decide which of the requests should be done first or should they do it or not. Okay, for example, if there's a change of request made by the user, so you have to classify it whether it's an error or it's other types. If it's an error, it is given a top priority. If it's error which is very severe, you will get top priority, meaning that this has to be done first. If it's an error but it's not very important or very critical, it will either be evaluated, you have to categorize it, okay, and then based on the category and after prioritizing it, so they will start to do, okay, they will start to do to act on the changes, right? Okay, let's say if the change of request is not an error, it can either be from the adaptive type or the enhancement type, they will do a certain process. Okay. Of course, this maintenance process, accepting requests, change at the during the analysis part, do again, do analysis, do design again, do coding again. All those requires a lot of lots of course, right? Because it's as though that you are repeating the same cycle when you are doing the development for the first time, right? So there of course they will cause the customer to pay. And among the factors involved is, of course, the latent defect. These are referring to the errors that is being found later on by the user. The more error that you have, the more cost it will incur. And also, it depends also on the number of customers for the system. Let's say one of the error actually affects a number of users. So the more number of users involved, the more cost it involves because it has higher severity. All right. The cost of maintenance also are affected by the quality of system documentation. Why? Because the maintenance, when you do maintenance, you have to refer back to whatever documentation that the develop the development team has produced, right? So if it's been written well, so when you are doing maintenance, it's easier to understand about the system, right? Because maybe the maintenance team is different from the developer team, so it's not the same person. So documentation at this point of time is very important. And also, the cost of maintenance also is influenced by the maintenance personnel quality. Are they very well trained in that programming languages, for example? Are they used to that kind of system? So a very expert programmer might know where the errors happen, why, right? And also it is affected by availability of automated tools. If you have automated tools, maybe it's easier for you to detect errors earlier. And also maintenance cost is also influenced by the quality of program code and system design. All right, if you have a very well written code and very well designed, so it's easier to trace where there are the errors, and it's easier to understand the code in order to fix it. Okay, so this slide is basically covering on what are the common mistakes actually experienced whenever um, you are in the implementation phase. Sometimes you are actually doing a project, but that project you are developing a system which is based on research-oriented development, meaning that the team are actually trying to try new latest technology, latest device. So they are not used to it, but they are willing to try it because of the impact that they foresee in the future. So because they are not used to the technology or to the devices, so they are more most probably it's easier for them to experience error because they are not familiar with the technology or the hardware. So if the project is research oriented development, a way on how to avoid errors is to allow more time, okay, so that the team are more familiar, have more time to learn about the technology. All right. The second common mistakes that happen during implementation is the use of low-cost personnel, meaning that you hire a slightly cheaper programmer, for example, less qualified, because it's cheaper, of course, it's less qualified, and the experience might not be very long. So you are hiring a very unexperienced personnel. So as a solution, of course, you need to pay, give a better pay in order to get a good experienced staff. Okay, the third common mistakes also is not having source code control, because especially because you are working in a group, working in a team, so there need to be a way for you to handle different versions of software, or every different programmer, for example, they are working on a different code, right? So one of or two of them might be leaving the organization before the project ends, right? So how are you going to maintain the source code? All right, and the last one is not having enough tests. All right, whereby the testing are done in a ad hoc manner, meaning that it's not planned. So whenever there are errors, you actually do it. Whenever this module is you are having additional time, you perform the test. It's not well planned, right? So what you have covered so far is we are covering the activities related to implementation phase, which is related to providing documents, support and training, and also how to handle implementation. Okay, sorry, how to handle maintenance whenever there are requests for change related to uh, corrective, when there are errors, preventive, adaptive, right? Okay, thank you so much.